Okay, so on the right side of the P950 we have a little flap, and you see where it's labeled HDMI here and USB. Well, that's because underneath this flap, if you open it, you'll actually find a micro HDMI connection and a micro USB connection. You can use this USB connection to charge the camera with the included power supply that comes with the camera, or you can use a USB cable to transfer images from the camera to your computer without actually taking out the memory card. Word of caution, please always use the cable that comes with the camera. It's not just any USB cable, it's a special USB cable that's designed to work with a camera. A camera is a delicate device, so from an electrical perspective, both the USB cable and the Nikon power charger that comes with this camera, those are the only things you should use on this camera. Using a phone charger or some other cable could damage this camera, so a word of caution. As far as the HDMI cable is concerned, the HDMI cable can be any micro HDMI on one end, and then whatever HDMI port your display uses. It could be a standard HDMI end, and that's what you would use on the cable. And all the cables and filters and everything that I'm mentioning in this video, I have them listed in the description below, so you can click on those links if you'd like to purchase one of them. And let's say I had a display that I wanted to connect and I wanted to see what's happening on the camera on a much bigger display. Then I would plug my micro HDMI cable in right there. But notice that as soon as I plug my micro HDMI cable in to my monitor, then the screen on the P950 goes off. That's a disadvantage that I don't like about this camera. I would like to use the on-screen display and an external monitor simultaneously, but Nikon doesn't allow us to do that, and I have no idea why. However, we can work around that, so in another video I'll talk about that. But the good thing is that we have an external HDMI port, and that's something very useful as I discuss some other uses of this camera in future videos. Okay, so something else that you need to bear in mind is when you're using the micro HDMI connection on the camera, you cannot use the USB port. It's either one or the other. The other thing you can't use while you're using the micro HDMI port is the remote. And this is a remote that doesn't come with the camera. You have to purchase it separately. Now, if you buy it off Amazon, depending on which package you purchase, the remote might be included. So if the camera and the link I've provided below, if the kit doesn't include the remote, you might want to search for a kit with the remote. But I find that it's probably better to buy the remote separately. But if you can find a good deal with this remote, then by all means you can get it. This remote is called the ML-L7A. So you can search for it with a kit, or you can just, if you find a nice kit and then the remote separately, then that works also. That turned out to be the most cost-effective option for me, because the other things I got in the kit with this camera, there was just no comparison. The price was good, and then I got this remote separately. So you can't use this remote while you're using the HDMI port for an external display, and I didn't really like that, but it's not a big either. We can work around that. This remote is very useful. However, there are certain things about it that I don't like, as I'll illustrate now. So let's wake up the camera. Let's hit the menu, arrow left, scroll down to network menu, connection to remote, hit that. And then it's asking me to press and hold the power button on the remote for 3 seconds. That's how you make the connection to the remote. The thing I don't like about this is that if the camera goes to sleep for whatever reason, it loses the connection with the remote. And if you wake up the camera, then what happens is that you'll have to go through the process to pair the remote again. That's not how Bluetooth normally works. With Bluetooth, once you pair an item to your cell phone or whatever device the first time, each time you turn it on, it automatically reconnects, or it at least says, hey, I see this device. Would you like to connect it? And it gives you the option to do it. But to have to go through that process all the time, I'm not very fond of that. And I wish Nikon would eliminate that in a future firmware update and just make the connection automatic once the remote turns on. Because if you turn on the remote, it's because you want to use it, right? So that should be a no-brainer, really. That should be something automatic. And hopefully someone from Nikon is watching this video and they'd add it to a future firmware update. See, the camera just went into idle mode, and I'm going to press that button. Wakes up. Guess what? Bluetooth is flashing, but it doesn't detect the remote. Even if I press this and the light here is flashing, doesn't see it. I have to go to menu. I have to scroll down to network, connection to remote, and reconnect again. Not good. But it's a minor thing. Considering all the good things that this camera does, it's something minor that I can live with now for the time being until Nikon decides to fix this issue, hopefully in a future firmware update.